Meeting with the Gilroy City Council and the Gilroy Unified School District Board. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone in the public that if you plan to speak on an item tonight, on or off the agenda, if you could please fill out a yellow card and hand it to our city clerk so that we can be prepared for the number of people who wish to speak on any particular item. All right, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If we would stand, and Chair Linda Pacino will lead us in the pledge.
Please stand. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Item 2, City Clerk's report on posting the agenda.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The agenda was published back on Thursday, April 21st at 2 p.m.
Thank you, and roll call.
Forgive me here. So, Board Member Aguirre? Here. Board Member Diaz? Board Member Fayak? Board Member Fayak?
Yes, here.
Board Member Good is absent. Board Member Nelson? Here. Board Member Paste?
Here.
And President Pisano?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Almerderis?
Here.
Councilmember Bracco?
Here.
Councilmember Hilton is absent. Councilmember Lito Munoz?
Present.
Councilmember Marks is absent. Councilmember Tovar?
Here.
And Mayor Blankley?
Here. Okay, and I'll ask everybody when you have to speak, even if it's just to say here, please make sure your mic is on because those watching and recording won't hear you otherwise. Okay. Item 2, presentations to the Council and Board of Education. This is the time for anybody who wants to speak on anything that is not on tonight's agenda. So I'll ask our city clerk if we have anybody who wants to speak.
I received no speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then we'll move on to item 3. Discussion items, 3.1. We're going to start with school board things first. So the first one is South Valley Middle School reconstruction projects. GUSD has the lead. Debbie, the mic, is it on or close enough to you?
I need to start over.
There we go. If you want the public to, yeah.
Good evening, City Council members and school board members. I'm here to speak to you about a major project that's occurring in Gilroy Unified, and that is the reconstruction of South Valley Middle School. It's getting a lot of attention right now because we've had classes like 1966, 1973, about 6 or 7 classes of alumni have been over to the school visiting, seeing what we're doing, and they're very, very excited about the project. So as I speak, if someone could just advance the slides, I'll tell you when. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I wanted to give you an overview of what's happening at the project right now. It's very exciting. That's even better. Thank you. Okay. So first you have to visualize the Murray Street. So on the right, as you can see, is Murray. On the left are the existing old South Valley buildings, and they're in lines, essentially. That was very common back then in that type of construction. On the right used to be a huge field, and as you can see, we already have created most of the new classroom buildings. They have roofs on, they're starting to be painted, and lots of things are happening inside those classrooms. In the center, there's going to be a paw, and I don't know if you could, they're called the tiger paws. So right in the center of all those classrooms is a paw, and it's going to be a major quad area for the campus. In front of the classrooms, we have the beginnings of a parking lot. Eventually, there will be a very long drop-off area, actually longer than Brownells. Most of you have been to Brownells. So if you can visualize the new drop-off area for Brownell, you can visualize it for South Valley. Our goal is to have those classrooms, the landscaping, everything done by this August. The experts sitting over there. And to move all of our teachers into the classrooms as well as everybody else. So temporarily we'll have library, we'll have the administration building. Everyone will be in those classrooms. And on June 13th, around there, we're going to be tearing down all the old buildings. So literally, you don't want to miss it. Drive by sometime that week and you'll get a chance to see them coming down. So I'm just going to go through real quickly. Again, Murray's on your right, just to keep your orientation. And as you can see, there's a lot happening at the site. In fact, school board members and I will be going through the project this Friday morning just to get it. Is it this Friday or next Friday? Next Friday morning. We do regular walkthroughs of the project so that we can keep up to date on the construction. There's the parking lot. The concept for South Valley is really different than Brownell. They wanted it to have sort of a village appearance, so there's a lot more color, a totally different design. And this came from a committee that met for a year to design this campus, which included staff, board members, as a lot of people were involved. So I'm just going to real quickly show you where we are right now. And there's the rendering of what it'll look like when it's done. It's going to be an incredible campus. This will be the new administration building and student services, library, major buildings, which, by the way, will not happen until next year. So we focused first on the classrooms because we didn't want to bring any interim housing. We wanted to build one part of the campus like we did at Brownell, move everybody over, tear down the old campus, and then build the new buildings. So these will be the big buildings that we'll build next year along with the gym. So there's the new front entrance off of Murray, and there's what you'll walk into when you go in that front entrance. And this is the new gym, and that will also be built next year. There's the interior of the library. I'm just going to go through these real quickly. So and we are moving over Bert Marr's name on the gym. It will still be named after him, as well as, by the way, a lot of plaques that are in the ground. The alumni are very worried about those being dug up and brought over to the new building, so we're going to do that. We haven't decided where they're going yet, but it's going to be an incredible facility. There's also, next to the administration, a new choir band room, which is very nice. There's just a lot, so many features. Of course, all new blacktop, place for kids to run out. It's just going to be an amazing. So I just described phase 1, and then we'll be moving into phase 3. And the last phase is the new track and field, which will be in between our charter school and the new campus. And that'll be the last phase. It's a very exciting project, $90 million. Thank you to Gilroy voters for supporting the bond measure that allowed us to build this campus, as well as Brownell and many other projects. So any questions?
Thank you, Debbie. Yes, council members, any questions for Debbie?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you
Sure.
for your work on this, too. I'm really excited. And let me know when class of 88 is ready to go over there.
You can initiate it yourself,
could.
by the way.
I could.
That's everywhere I go. People are asking me that question. I
Yeah.
just put them in contact with people over there, and we schedule it. We've had lots of tours already.
So I noticed that Bert Marr's and other plaques will be preserved. What
Yes.
about the mural?
Everything that's
The mural on the gym? Because I know that could
On the
probably
gym?
be challenging. Yeah.
what side of the gym? It's not on the Bert Marsh side. It's on the other side.
On the other side, yeah.
Wow, that would be difficult to do. I don't know. I don't want to say yes or no.
Yeah.
I want to consult with the experts over there. That's a pretty hard thing to do.
I think it was
We've run
painted in
into
the
that
70s,
before at
yeah.
other campuses.
Yeah. And then California law protects murals, so there's going to have to be a plan for it.
We'll look at
Just to
that.
flag that.
When we've been able to, we have.
Yeah.
It just depends how it's put on
Painted.
the building.
Mhm.
We'll just have to look at it and see what we can do. Paul Nato is he's in charge of facilities. That's why I keep looking at him. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so the administrative buildings, and those are going to be where the classrooms are now?
Yes. Well, on the Murray side will be, can I go back?
The phase we just saw.
On Murray's side, you'll see, let me get back. There's the front of the campus. On the left is the cafeteria, band room in the back, and on the right is the administration library. That's on Murray Street.
Okay.
And I'd have to go through, let me see if I can, Paul, you're probably better at this, of showing you. Now, the gym is on IOOF, and there's a parking lot in front of it. So not only will we have parking on Murray, but we'll have parking on IOOF right in front of this gym. So people can come right off of IOOF and park right in front of the gym. And then adjacent to that is the field. Going down IOOF after the gym is the track and field and other landscaping kinds of things. So it's a completely different layout than we currently have.
And do we know by how much the play area, like the sports fields and stuff, are going to be reduced? Because I know that the neighborhood relied a lot on using the fields where the first phase is built for soccer and other sports.
I don't think the field space is reduced. You want to weigh in on that, Paul? It might even be expanded. Let me go back. So we have this quad area. Obviously, kids will be in there. Over on the left is a small field, but what we can't see on here is the track and field. So you want to respond?
Sure. Good evening. So to respond to the question about open play fields, they've changed in makeup, but I don't think they've been reduced in size.
No.
On this particular campus, this particular image below us, there's outdoor recreation area, there's an amphitheater, there's also a basketball court, and then off to our left, which I didn't see in any of these slides.
I don't think we have a picture on that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go to the last slide. That's probably the closest.
That's probably the closest, yeah.
I'm going backwards, aren't I? Always going backwards. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
See all that play space?
and then, yeah, off on the left-hand side, there's an interior court. You can kind of see it. There's 3 light-colored green areas. That's a multi-use court area. So currently, PE likes to use pickleball as part of their curriculum. So we built out a number of courses for them. And then beyond that, there's another extra field. And then obviously there's a large courtyard field right in the middle. And then I think there's 8 or 9 basketball fields, plus the track and field that'll be now directly adjacent to the gym.
Yeah, so we could measure it, but I think we probably have more space for children to be active.
Thank
Looks really nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmembers Tovar, Rocco, the Romanios, any questions? When will students be actually occupying the buildings?
The students will move in August 17th, right before that's when we start school.
Great.
Teachers will be there as soon as we can get them in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Rebecca, you mentioned murals are protected by law. What code is that?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But I know that it's,
That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah,
but I know that they aren't.
is the living room mural, I mean, is it a school-sponsored thing, or is it a teacher-sponsored mural, or?
We're going to.
Yeah, I don't think we need,
We're going to
Point
look into this.
taken, so I think,
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
It may not apply to schools, Rebecca, we were just talking about that. Because we have murals on a lot of buildings that we've replaced, so I think we would have looked into it, but we're going to look into it. Thank you for asking that.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to go to public comment if we have any.
I received no speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right. Get everybody out there. All right, then I'll close public comment and we'll go on to 3.2, which is still, no, that's us. No, it's not. It's school, I don't know, it's both of us. Yeah, 3.2 is school crossing guards.
Right,
So
there's only one slide on this, so if
Okay.
you could pull that slide up. And I know, how do I do that? Really? You don't know me and my technology skills.
No worries.
Me too.
Okay, yes, thank you. And I know the chief will be weighing in
Yes.
on this.
Right, yep.
So just to let you know, I think you all know, a month or so ago, 2 children were hit in a crosswalk near Elliott School. Took my breath away. I could hardly think for about 2 hours until we got worried that they were fine. They did go to the hospital. They were, taken by ambulance. Thankfully, they were fine. They've been fine ever since. But it caused a lot of concern by staff, parents, not just at Elliott, but at other schools. So the question was asked by members of the public, who funds crossing guards and, who hires them, who trains them? So we wanted just to show you this very simple slide as of today, and I emphasize that because it constantly changes. It is very difficult to find people to do this job. Who wants to work 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes in the afternoon? And furthermore, it's not a pleasant job. Any of us who have helped with traffic in the morning know that you're often the brunt of angry, rushed people. And lots of people, we've talked people into doing the job before, and they last a few weeks. So it's a very difficult position to fill. So what we've sort of evolved to is combining our playground supervisors when they're willing with crossing guard. And so this is the best we can do, and the best it's been in a while. I would love to see more crossing guards, in our district, but it's a very, very tough position to fill and to keep people there. So this is what we have right now. Los Animas, for instance, the principal's recruited parents personally. She's interviewed some people, and then they don't want the job. So, it is what it is. Crossing guards are very difficult to find. As we've talked, we think that it's more about educating both students on how to get to school safely, educating drivers, and I'm going to turn that over to the chief because he knows a lot more about that. I will say we really appreciate the extra patrols at Elliott since the accident, and at any school that we requested. We really appreciate the extra patrols because, quite frankly, that's probably more effective in a lot of cases because we have intersections all over our district. There's no way we can hire crossing guards for that. Probably, I'm going to guess, hundreds of intersections that kids traverse. I'll turn it over. Thank you. Chief.
Madam Mayor, Madam President, members of council, school board members. Let me just talk to you a little bit about our enforcement efforts around the schools. And I have some numbers that we compiled for this school year from August 18 till April 10th. And we currently have 3 motorcycle officers assigned to our traffic division. We're currently carrying 2 vacancies. And so what happens every morning is they have a list of rotating schools. So they try to get to each school at least once, and I have some numbers here, at least once a month. And so every 5 weeks they would get to that same school once they go through the rotation process. And so they focus their efforts during the drop-off times and the pickup times. And so every time they go out there, they generate a call for service that then is inputted into our computer-aided dispatch. And this is how we came up with these numbers. So for the school year, they generated 302 calls so far. 98 of those calls were to the high schools, and 95 to the middle schools, and 109 to the elementary schools. We also are carrying an Office of Traffic Safety grant and for distracted drivers and seatbelt violations. And those are, the patrol officers can sign up for those overtime hours, and they are scheduled around the same time as drop-off and pickup. So that complements whatever the traffic division is doing. And so that is one way of supplement the traffic enforcement efforts, being that they're a little bit short. But as you can see, that is an effort that's taken up on a daily basis. Certainly they are primary in all the vehicle collision investigations. And we have to also take into account that so often they are away at training or on vacation. But when they're here, they schedule all their enforcement efforts around drop-off and pickup times at the schools. I do have specific numbers if you're interested as far as what schools and how often they were there. For example, Solorzano, they were out there twice. Brownell, 44 times, so 17 hours out there. Christopher High School, 40 times, 14 hours. El Roble, 20 times, 6 hours. Elliott, 14 times. Gilroy High School, 58 times. Glenn, 25. Luigi Aprea, 26. Rod Kelly, 24. And South Valley, 49 times, for a total of 302 calls for service. Not every enforcement stop results in a citation. They do issue written warnings. And certainly, the goal is to make sure that infraction is not committed again, and oftentimes, a warning is sufficient. And most of those calls are usually concluded with some sort of educational conversation. And so hopefully that helps in any of the questions you may have as far as our efforts around the schools and enforcement.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to questions then of everybody. I'll start, Michelle, I'll start at your end and just come down the line. Do you have any questions for either the chief or for Debbie? Otherwise, I'll move to, okay, yes, go ahead.
I'm curious, do you happen to know the number of citations or warnings per school? So that if there, for instance, I'm just pulling a school like Los Altos, if you have a ton, maybe we should concentrate our education efforts at that particular school.
I do have it by, say, high schools resulted in 76 traffic stops, 4 written warnings, and 16 cites. So again, not every stop results in a violation. Middle schools, 43 traffic stops, 6 written warnings, and 11 cites. Elementary, 43 stops, 5 written warnings, and 10 citations. If we want specific by school, certainly that's possible too. I just don't have the, a specific number of citations per school, but we could do that. We could produce that.
Okay.
Question.
I'm looking here first. No questions there? Okay. Peter, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I think Board Member Aguirre would like to
you
speak.
did?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's okay.
I was just wondering, this is the information for elementary schools, crossing guards. Do we have that information if there's any crossing guards for junior highs?
We don't have crossing guards at most of our middle and high schools. I think there's one that has them. So we just haven't been able to find people to do it. And, a school like Gilroy High or Christopher High is a tough place to be a crossing guard. So, no, we don't. It's elementary.
Thank you for both of your presentations. Dr. Flores, before you leave, there's 7 crossing guards. What would be ideal, a number of crossing guards? Not ideal as in, what would be the amount that the school district would be prepared to employ, I guess is what I'm trying to
Well, a couple for every school. Like Rod Kelly is a good example where we have 2, and they're at the 2 busiest intersections. And they are needed. Mantelli and Kern, you have to have a crossing guard there.
And they mean business. I drive through there and we're telling you.
I know. 2 per school would be great if we could find them, but since the Elliott situation, the principal has personally talked to numerous parents and asked them to do the job. We actually have someone in the works right now, but right now that one is represented by a longtime retired staff member who's just out there doing it and is a great guy, and occasionally a playground supervisor. But we soon will have an official crossing guard there, somebody dedicated to that. But ideally, at least a couple. But there are so many streets, even around Elliott, which is the smallest. There's so many intersections. We have to focus on the ones that are the most dangerous.
And then a follow-up question for both of you is like at Solar Sano, where now there's been an egress and ingress, an additional one. Has that made it more difficult, easier?
No, it's much better. I helped the first few days of school. I've been out there regularly. It's much better. I drive through there every day. I don't drive through there every day, but it helps so much. That was one of our most difficult spots because you went in and out, and as we learned after the Garlic Festival shooting, when parents didn't have access to Christmas Hill Park, it was a nightmare. So fortunately now, and they put a lot of thought into how the traffic flow would work, it's working really well. There's hardly any wait time. There's a little bit in the afternoon wait time. In the morning, people come at different times, so it's staggered, and with the 2 entrances, it's working really well. Afternoon's always a challenge there, but it's much better than it was before we had the second. Yeah, much better.
Okay. Councilmember Romanos.
Great. Superintendent, I'll just say that I see your crossing guards in action at least a couple of times a week myself when I go running, and I go right through that intersection at Wren and Mantelli. And I don't know the name of the woman who's there, but she's been working for years. 'Cause I've seen her for a long
she's
time.
amazing.
She's fantastic.
Yes.
If she comes out when I'm the only person running across the street, she'll stop traffic for me. So
Yeah.
whoever she is, big props
She's
to her.
amazing, and nobody argues with her because she's been doing it a long time.
She means business.
Yes.
Seriously. But she's great. But my question was going to be for the chief with regard to the most recent accident with the students. Do we know what was the cause of that? And the reason I ask is because, you know, as we hear about crossing guards, as we hear about policing, it would also be helpful for us on council to know if there are things we should be thinking about with regard to physical infrastructure. And I think understanding the cause would help us better understand what we need to be considering as we make these decisions.
Right. It's my understanding that there was some sort of glare that was preventing the driver from seeing the kid in the crosswalk.
Yeah, it was. That's true.
So that was,
okay.
You know,
Go ahead and fix that, Peter.
Yeah, so I'll get right to work on the rising sun coming out of the east.
Yeah, we discussed that, in fact, at our the meeting we had last Friday.
Yeah.
And it would have been, I mean, chances are if there had been a crossing guard in there, I mean, unless that crossing guard could have yelled and screamed in time,
Yeah, right.
the crossing guard would also have been hit in that particular circumstance.
But-
So, yeah.
Can I just add something, Madam Mayor? But just to be a little bit more technical, every time there's a traffic collision, a primary collision factor is assigned to that collision. So it could have been speed, it could have been right-of-way violation, inattention. And so not seeing the report myself, either of those could have been the primary collision factor.
Okay. I think that's helpful. Oh,
I think you should, yeah.
The district and the city couldn't afford those type of infrastructure remediations like we just did jointly at Orchard and 10th. That was major. People used to get hit there every single year I've been here. One girl was airlifted to a hospital, major damage to her face at that intersection. It has made a huge difference. That traffic is controlled now basically by the work that we jointly did there. But I'm not advocating for one of those at every school site. I don't think we need that kind of, intervention at every school site. But there are some that we might want to look at, think more, modifications to the infrastructure kind of idea.
Yeah, we're certainly open to hearing those as you come to those decisions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Armendariz, you had a question? And then, yeah, I'll get to you.
Regarding Rucker, I know it's a different setup, a different situation, but given how precarious of a placement it has, with the freeway off-ramp and on-ramp, and the recent death that happened there, I went and took a look at 6th Street, and I wonder, could we add more signage, like let it know it's a school zone or school zone coming up? Like, what could we do that the county and Caltrans aren't already doing as either a city or a school district in terms of signage to let people know you're near a school or you've got a school district coming?
Yeah, Rutgers very different than the other schools. First, it's, not in the city, it's in the county. But very few kids walk to school. I mean, literally, less than a handful of kids walk to school. They are all driven or bused. We bus more students to Rutgers than any other elementary school because they serve the whole east side of Gilroy. The biggest issue there is, unfortunately, where the fatality occurred. It's just so tragic. It's people coming off the highway really fast and ramming into people, turning into the street that goes into the school. That's our biggest issue there. I'm not aware of any student being hit or even
No, I was
close.
referring to the gentleman who died there. Yeah.
Right, that was so sad. And by the way, follow up to that, our principal reached out to the sheriffs, and they have done some things together to try to improve that. But it's really out of our control. Those kind of signs, we can't put up signs like that in the county. So I know she has been working with the sheriff that's assigned to Rutgers.
So it's not the school district that puts up signage around the schools?
Not that kind of signage on the streets. not on city or county streets. And even when we want to make modifications, like let's say we want to create a longer red zone, that we always have to clear through the city or county. So the streets are not ours, basically.
Good to know. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Bracco, did you have anything?
Dr. Flores, I got the new school. Will there be any like warning devices?
Yes, great
The ones that light
question.
up?
Yes, right on Murray. I won't bring it back up. But where I showed you on Murray, we're going to have the parking lot and drop-off area. And I forget the name of the street. Do you remember, Paul? It's right across from the new entrance. There will be a similar, you want to describe it? You know it a lot better than I do. It's similar to the orchard setup.
Good evening once again. The crosswalk in front of Murray Avenue that will allow students to cross into the campus is going to have two flashing signs, one on either side of the street, the typical crosswalk right in the middle. It's right across from Taft and, yeah, I think it's Taft Court. But yeah, very similar to what we have over at Orchard.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Dr. Flores. Adding to my colleague, Laura Munoz's comments, I run through Glenville every morning, and the gentleman who works there in the morning is, I commend the gentleman that's there because, as you know, it gets really hectic in that little area. I think I've been almost hit 4 times, so. But just sort of the work that he's doing, and I can see why folks may be hesitant to sort of work as a crossing guard. But our crossing guard, is it volunteer or is it a paid position?
No, it's a paid position.
It's a paid position. And is that's funded through the school district
School
budget?
district.
So it's not through fundraising of the schools or anything?
No, it's funded by the district.
Okay. But talking about the flashing crosswalks, does not all schools have that? There's only certain schools, right? Or
The only one I know of is the Orchard one. Is there any other?
No.
Orchard's the only one.
yeah, and I asked that question because I wondered if that might be a possible solution to help with sort of the crossing because, as you know, we have one downtown and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least people see it, right? So I don't know if
It's
that's,
worked beautifully at Gilroy High, but that cost, was it $150,000? $160,000. It's very expensive.
maybe Mr. Pace can pay for it. So no, I asked that question because no, well, no, thank you. Those were my questions. I know I've talked to some folks about being, crossing guards, but I think the same issues. They're not up to all the sort of hustle and bustle that goes with it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody from the public who would like to speak on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one speaker card from Ron Kirkish.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and everybody. As I was listening, we're talking about issues of safety and things like that, crossing guards. How about school cameras? Is there anything going on with cameras on our campuses and stuff like that? That would be interesting, I think, to myself and a lot of people. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'll respond real quickly. We have extensive security cameras at all our middle and high schools, some of the state-of-the-art cameras at all our middle and high schools, and our goal is to eventually have them at the elementary, but Aurelio can describe those briefly.
Hello, good evening. Right now we're looking at getting cameras for all the middle schools, or replacing and upgrading all the camera systems that we have and bringing in even more camera systems into the elementary schools. We've got a contractor that we're working with, and we're putting it out to bid here shortly. So we should be seeing here within the next couple months some bids coming in.
Thank you. Yes. And no other comments?
No other comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Oh, there is one more comment, not from the public, right. Closing public comment and back to here, yes.
Just one more comment, just because I think this is the right place to mention it, and it's doesn't necessarily deserve a response. But that westbound day road going into Christopher High, I know it's an immediate left turn. That's the only thing that can be done on it. But obviously that might be, I think, a location for citations probably, but people want to continue going west onto Cougar Court, I think it's Cougar Court is what it's called. The Christopher Hyde campus, they're wanting to go into that location. That would be a place to look for improvement there. There's room for improvement there for sure. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Item 3.3, GUSD enrollment update and impacts on the budget. Alvaro, are you going to be? Yeah, you're going to be doing this one. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Board Member, Madam President, City Council members, and Governing Board, and members of the public. I'm Alvaro Mesa. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight with you. I'll start with an overview of really what's happening at the state level in terms of the enrollment trends, again, at the state level, and then narrow in the focus on the Santa Clara County before we get to our own district, Gilroy Unified. So you can take a look at the historical enrollment trends in California. These are all public school numbers, so well over 6.2 million going back to really the peak of the graph. It's found in 1617. And since then, you can see we've dropped about 110,000 students by 21-22. Obviously, the pandemic accelerated those declines, but really these trends have been kind of telegraphed by the decline in birth rates. So again, this is just the state. So for the first time since I can remember, the state is below 6 million students in public schools, which obviously includes charter schools. This is Santa Clara County. And so right now, the current year is 241,000 students in Santa Clara County. You can see that the drop in the county is actually larger going back to 16-17, a drop of over 11% in Santa Clara County. Public schools, again, includes charter schools. So 11% drop since the 16-17 fiscal year. And now we get to our own Gilroy Unified School District data. Now we've declined over 800, just about 860 students since 16-17, but the percentage drop is 7% or so, 7.4% since that. So the state has declined about 7%, the county has declined 11% since that period, and we've declined a little bit less than the county. But, you know, aligned with the state, I would say. The projections for next year is that we would basically decline to 10,595 students. But I think more interestingly, that really the forecast is somewhat flat really for next year and the subsequent year. And it incorporates universal transitional kindergartner into the equation, which is now basically a new grade level. Now, the more interesting fact is that the birth rates throughout California, as you know, has been at historically low. I think 2 or 3 years ago, an article came out that said that we were at a 100-year low in terms of birth rates in California as a state. So really, it's nothing that Gilroy Unified isn't doing to attract kids. In fact, we're losing less students than the county overall. But really, the long-term trend is we're looking at a footprint of 9,600 students. So over a decade, it's projected that we would lose another 900 students over the next 10 years, which is obviously concerning. And the very top of this chart, you can see the TK for transitional kindergartner. And you can see that we will, at one point, be anticipated to reach almost 400 students in that grade level. Yet, because of that higher, the cohort moving along, you can look at the current 10th grade class this year. And once that 1,000 student population leaves, the cohort, as the cohort survival method moves in, and we add a year, we lose that grade level, the footprint shrinks despite the additional grade level of transitional kindergartner. So this is going to happen statewide. This is going to happen throughout the state. And of course, our county of Santa Clara is likely going to feel the decline steeper than Gilroy Unified. Naturally, we get roughly about $10,500 per student. So every loss of a student is a loss of funding for us. So this will mean over the next decade, we'll have to have some tough conversations around the budget and what we can sustain over the long term.
Very good. Well, my daughter has told me not to hold my breath. There you go. She's 24. Okay. All right. Here on the dais, asking for any questions. I'll start on this end this time. Councilmember Tovar, do you have any questions? Councilmember Rocco? Armendariz? Okay, no. This way? Anybody?
My two go to Gilroy School, so.
And we thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody from the public who wants to speak on this?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Closing public comment. And that puts us 3.4. So we go to the city now, taking the lead. This is community development activities. And we've got John Biggs, who's going to be, he's our interim community development director, to give us this report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the School Board. I'm John Biggs. I'm serving as the Interim Community Development Director here for the City of Gilroy. I have an update for you this evening on some development projects here in the City of Gilroy and some things that the city is doing as an initiative to kind of forward the development that is occurring here. We have a lot of development occurring in the City of Gilroy at the moment, both residential development and commercial development. We have a mix of residential development that includes a lot of single-family dwellings along with multifamily dwellings. For example, Hecker Pass, Hoey North, which is out on the west side of town, is a 72-unit single-family residential development project that currently has all of its entitlements and is going through the building permit issuance process. Glen Loma Ranch, we have the 3 final subdivisions, tentative maps for the completion of that development project that are currently going through our city's review process. We have Miller and Santa Teresa. This is a large residential project, 54-lot subdivision on the south side of the city that is going through our review process. We also have some development that's occurring on the inside or within the city limits of the City of Gilroy. 700 West 6th Street is a 19-lot subdivision for single-family homes. This will take over the location of which had been a medical facility complex there at the corner of 6th and Prince Val. Royal Way, this is a townhome project, 45-unit townhome project. And then finally, one project that I'm a little excited about because it includes 2 commercial or live-work units is occurring at 7888 Monterey Road. And that's exciting because I think it's a little bit different type of development for Gilroy, and I think it'll help us both with our climate action efforts in the future and for making sure that we don't have people driving as far to get to work if they can just walk down the stairs. Here's a little bit of eye candy for the council and the school board. Royal Way Townhomes is the top photograph. That's the architect's rendering of the project upon completion. Again, we're still taking a look at this and making sure that it complies with our design guidelines and goals. And then the 700 West 6th Street project, that is some renderings of the single-family homes that will be constructed on the site. 2 stories with a mix of materials and then broken up massing.
I'm sorry. Is Royal right next to Gilroy High? Is that where that's?
It is. It's the vacant lot next to Gilroy High that backs up to the levee system that is there. Correct.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The City of Gilroy is looking at growing and expanding. We have one application at present in front of the Local Agency Formation Commission, which is a government body that takes a look at all the expansions of not just Gilroy, but other cities in the Santa Clara County. The site that we have in an application before them right now is a 55-acre site that's north of Mantelli Drive. It would accommodate approximately 300 residential units, and it's going to include a mix of low, medium, and high-density residential units. And we are waiting for getting a hearing in front of the LAFCO board. They've requested some additional information, and we are doing our best to make sure that they have that information. We're a little bit frustrated because we think we've provided that information, so we need to get together and meet with LAFCO staff members to make sure that they are processing the application in a timely manner. So that covers the residential development. Now we have quite a bit of commercial development occurring as well. 10th and Chestnut, I think you've probably all heard about this site. There is the existing little small shopping mall that is there right now. It used to have the donut shop that was there. That's all being taken out, and it's going to be redeveloped with a hotel along with a number of retail uses, including some fast food sites. We have a data center at 8,000 Camino Arroyo. That's going to include 214,000 square feet. And this project was actually headed to the state of California for review, but because of a change in the power source for the project, it's going to come back to the city of Gilroy for a review of that application. So we're starting the environmental review on that project right now. The Holloway Road and Luchessa Avenue projects are two projects that once they're complete will add a little over 1.3 million square feet of commercial space to the city of Gilroy. They're going through our entitlement process right now, and we're just beginning the review of the potential environmental impacts of this project. 951 Wrens Lane, which is behind the Walmart Supercenter. That's a distribution facility that's going through our entitlement process right now, 206,000 square feet. So that'll be a large project, and it'll complete the McCarthy Ranch plan update. Then we have a variety of development that is occurring in the downtown area. We have a variety of restaurants, coffee shops, new brew shops that are all occurring in the downtown. So we're looking at a lot of new development, redevelopment of the downtown, and kind of enlivening the downtown into the future. In terms, this is the last slide that I have for you this evening. In terms of key city projects, we have an update to our zoning code and our zoning map. Back in 2020, the city of Gilroy adopted its 2040 general plan, which lays out the future of development and the future of the city. Now we need to go back and update our zoning code to make sure that what's in our code or laws reflect what is part of the city's policies. We are in the process right now of also updating our housing element. This is a key element that's part of our general plan, and coupled with that is an update to our regional housing needs. These are the housing numbers that the state hands down about every 10 years to agencies, and it is the number of housing units, both low, medium income, and high income residential units that the state expects a city to have provide for in the future. Not that the city has to actually go out and build those housing units, but it needs to make sure that it has the land area in place and it has the zoning in place to accommodate that number of housing units. And for the city of Gilroy, our current regional housing allocation was right around 2,200 units. The recent allocation is a little over 1,700 units. So the city of Gilroy, unlike a lot of cities in the county of Santa Clara, has seen a reduction in the number of housing units it needs to provide for. I think that's a reflection of the efforts the city of Gilroy has made to actually accommodate housing versus throwing up roadblocks to the creation of housing. So the city is doing its part to really address the housing need in the future. Just on this, internally with the city staff, we're implementing a new land use management system. That's our permit tracking system, and we tie that to our GIS systems. The goal there is to better manage our record keeping and our permit processing activities and make available information to customers and citizens of Gilroy to make sure that they have an ability to come and check on where their projects are and other projects that are occurring in the city. And then finally, I'll wrap up and then answer any questions that you have. We are evaluating an update to our downtown specific plan. That was adopted in 2005, so we're taking a look at it to see if it needs a refresh, see what has been working, hasn't been working, and best ways to go about taking a look at updating that. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions that you have.
Okay. I will start on this end. I want you all to know that John is a Gilroy High grad too. If he lets me, I'll tell you the year, but he was the year after me. Okay.
Class 82.
I was 81, he was 82. I know. Go ahead. Michelle, do you have any questions? Okay. Just coming down to, okay, yes?
For the Luchessa Avenue, is that the Glen Loma Ranch area? I live in the Glen Loma. When I purchased that, I was told that there was going to be like a strip mall there and a fire station. So wanted to know what the status of that was.
Well, the Luchessa Avenue site is not the location of Glen Loma.
Okay.
That's on the east side of Highway 101 here in the city. And the developer is continuing to process plans and approvals for fulfillment of the Glen Loma Ranch project. That includes the commercial site at the corner of Miller and West Luchessa, and that would also be the site of the fire station.
Okay. But there's no like immediate break ground?
There's no immediate date on when that'll take place now.
Thank you.
Well, but Tampa. Yes, thank you. It's exciting to see all these development efforts in the city. They're fantastic. I think it's one of the reasons we've all moved to Gilroy. It's how it grows thoughtfully. So my observation is that having been a long-term commuter from Silicon Valley, that this was like the southernmost point that I would contemplate, my family would contemplate. And especially with that train station being the origination point, the end point, the southernmost point in Gilroy. But I can't help but notice that empty lot right next door on the east side, on the east side of the train tracks. That could be further developed as well. I know that's something that a lot of younger millennials are looking forward to having that short walk over to a train station that they can get on, and it's very punctual from what I've seen the times that I've taken it. So just an observation there.
That's a good observation, because it would be nice to have housing close to transportation networks like that. I think because that's property is owned by the railroad, so I think right now they're kind of looking at that to make sure that they'll have the land area needed for the high-speed rail
It's exactly
system.
for high-speed rail.
So
yeah,
before we commit, or before they commit to providing housing there, I think they're going to give it a close look and make sure that they will have what they need to accommodate high-speed rail.
But we as a city, I'll add, have asked the county who owns the lot at 8th and Alexander, which is just on the other side of that vacant lot, because we know that the one owned by the railroad is spoken for by high-speed rail. So the other one is where we as a city would like the county to at least consider some Measure A funded housing, because we in Gilroy have only one housing project, 75 units, that was able to take advantage of Measure A, and that's a $1 billion measure that this county passed, and Gilroy's only seen 75 units, and it's almost entirely spoken for, $1 billion. So working on it. Anyone else? No. Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Trustee Diaz, for calling me a millennial. Appreciate that. So thank you for that compliment. John, going back to the commercial, or we can even talk about just sort of, and I don't know if in that discussion or if we can even talk about two of the major sort of buildings in downtown. The old bowling alley and then the old Dick Bruins building. I'm not sure if you're aware of what's going on. There's been some movement with both of those, and I was hoping we could share a little bit.
I have heard that the ownership of both of those buildings is going to change, and the new owners are looking at doing things that will open those up once again and make them available to the public in a good format for the downtown.
Right. And for my conversations with folks and some of the folks who are possibly going in there, again, it's fluid, obviously.
Correct.
But I think from what I heard about the bowling alley is that they're going to try and renovate the bowling alley and put some restaurants in there. So that's a possibility that's going to come back to downtown.
That's what I've heard as well. We've kind of been encouraging folks to rehabilitate the bowling alley and keep that as an activity for the downtown. That would be nice to see. And
then the Dick Bruin building, from my understanding, there's possibility of building some studios up there and some shops downstairs, and hopefully for sale, so.
That's a little less clear at this point, but I think it would be a good opportunity to provide housing in the downtown adjacent to all the services that are provided there.
Yeah, because I've reached out to some folks pushing for that, so hopefully that'll come. I just want everybody to know that there is some movement going on with that, so I'm happy to see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, public comment, sorry. Did I ask for that?
No,
Okay.
but there are no speaker cards, Madam
All
Mayor.
right, then closing that. Okay, thank you. All right, item 3.5, economic development activities, and Corinne Decker, if all of you haven't met Corinne, she is our economic development manager.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, and the Gilroy Unified School District. Let's see. Very pleased to share some economic development updates with you this evening. I'm going to start by just giving you kind of a high-level overview of how our nation, our state, and our local economy are doing. The biggest measures, the economic indicators that kind of give us our guidance on how we're performing are, our GDP. And I'm happy to report that the national GDP increased at a rate of 7% in the fourth quarter of 2021, which followed an increase of 2.3% in the third quarter. And the acceleration in the fourth quarter was led by an acceleration in inventory investment, upturns in exports, and residential fixed investment, as well as an acceleration in consumer spending. Real GDP increased 5.7%, just to give you some perspective, from 2020 to 2021. So we are continuing to grow. And I will note that this growth is really associated mostly with our economic recovery, as we're beginning to see some relief from the COVID-19 pandemic that we've been in for so long, and it's not necessarily indicative of what we would consider to be a normal growth period, but it's positive. So on the national level, U.S. personal income increased by 7.2% for the fourth quarter of 2021, which is great news, especially when considering the continued upticks in inflation that we've been seeing. And although we don't have the latest numbers yet, through December, inflation had risen to 7% nationally, and California is trailing just behind that at 6.5%. And so as far as unemployment goes, the U.S. unemployment rate was 5.4 in 2021, and California's unemployment rate decreased to 6.5%. Locally, our unemployment rate is also dropping by quite a bit. So the unemployment rate in the San Jose, Santa Clara area was 2.5% in March 2020, which is down from 3% in February of 2022, and down from 5.8% a year ago. So we're really seeing some improvements there. As far as sales tax goes, our total taxable sales receipts for Gilroy increased by 37.6%. And so that's a wonderful thing to see. And it's related to the business activity that has increased in several sectors. General retail at almost 30%, food products at almost 20%, transportation 52.9%, construction 8%, and business to business 24.8%. Taxable sales. Oh, did I ask something? Oh, okay. Taxable sales increase was $135.6 million in Q4 2021. Again, this is folks getting back to business. They're going out, they're shopping, they're traveling. And so again, this is a lot of this growth is really reflective of what has happened post-pandemic, or as we're coming into recovery. And so this is just a representation of our annual per capita sales tax, kind of broken out by year. So you can see at the very left-hand side where we were in Q4 2017. And then you can see the big drop in 2020 in Q4. And then the promising return that we're seeing now in 2021 Q4. We're almost back at pre-pandemic levels, almost back to where we were in 2017 and 2018. So that's really promising. And then now we're going to kind of switch gears. So now that we understand kind of where we are from a general economic perspective, I'd like to talk to you about some progress that we're making on our 3 initiatives. So for many years, we've been working on helping Gilroy to become really a very strong outdoor recreational destination. And so we've had these 3 initiatives that we've been working on: the 536 acres at Hecker Pass, the Gilroy Gardens expansion, the sports park, and Gourmet Alley. So I'm just going to touch on where we are with each of these so that you have a good understanding of kind of what's happened since last year. So with the Gilroy Gardens Sports Park, it's exciting because we've come a long way since 2019. Now, understand too that we had the whole pandemic in there, and a lot of progress was, everything shut down for a while. But in May of 2019, we entered into an exclusivity agreement with the Sharks Sports Entertainment to discuss the possibility of a future ice facility, a Sharks ice facility at Gilroy Sports Park. And in February of 2020, the council established an ad hoc committee to further explore this. We hired EPS, which is our Economic and Planning Systems consultant, to assist in evaluating the project. And things have been progressing ever since. We've continued to have discussions with the Sharks in order to develop a term sheet that will kind of outline for us the basic concepts that might be contemplated in this potential partnership, and to really enter into a legally binding agreement. We've been negotiating with them or speaking with them about, different items, and we are getting closer. The Sharks are right now contemplating their legal and financial due diligence on their end, but in order to finish the draft term sheet. And then once it's completed, then we can present it to council, where we will be able to make a decision and get some movement on that. And then we have got on the Gilroy Gardens Hillside property, that's 536 acres for development and expansion. And before we could do anything with that, we had to send out a notice of availability as part of the Surplus Land Act. So we did that in August, and that triggered a 60-day period where folks that received that could have an opportunity to purchase that land. And we did have one interested party, which was Santa Clara County Parks, and they responded on the last day of that 60-day period. So we had another 90 days to talk to them. But last month, we received notice from the state that we had completed all of our requirements with the provisions of the Surplus Land Act and could now move forward with development on that site. And so we're continuing to talk to Santa Clara County. They've got some opportunities for the development of some trails up there. And so even though the SLA period has ended, we're still discussing, the future development of that trail system up there. And then our last initiative was Gourmet Alley. I'm pleased to announce that in January, we started an ad hoc committee with 3 of our council members to meet monthly to discuss development opportunities and redevelopment downtown. And in February, the city of Gilroy applied for the Caltrans Clean California Local Grant Program. And in March, we were chosen as a recipient of that program, which was exciting news because we were the only city in Santa Clara County to have received the grant, and less than, I think it was 30% of the applicants actually received grant funding. So that was exciting. Our grant award was $3.9 million. It was one of the largest grant amounts awarded statewide, and the project would include infrastructure and cleanups in our downtown historic district, including Gourmet Alley and Railroad Alley. Let's see. A little bit about the Caltrans Clean California Local Grant Program is it's really a program that was designed to reduce waste, improve public spaces, enhance public health, and advance equity. That's really what the grant was meant to do. And so part of it was to transform public spaces for greater public use. And so in doing so, it gave us an opportunity to take some areas that were traditionally underserved and had problems with litter abatement and transform those to make them beautified spaces that could be used by more of our community. And so, whoops, I'm not sure how to get that slide back. Oh, I got it. And so projects for Gilroy is really improved paving, lighting, landscaping, waste collection, walking and biking facilities, things of that nature. And more specifically, we will be working on the alleyways between 4th and 7th on Gourmet and Railroad. It's got a 0% match, which is nice, and the project must be completed by June 30th, 2024. We will renovate and repave both of the alleyways, provide additional lighting, waste collection, marked walking and biking pathways to make it safer for people to come downtown, and really provide a corridor for folks that live in the neighborhoods surrounding downtown to get to the Caltrans station, to be able to get downtown on their bicycles without having to go down Monterey Street with all of the traffic. So it's an exciting opportunity for Gilroy, and ultimately we hope that it will help stimulate activity on Gourmet Alley and encourage additional economic development in that area. So that's kind of the overview that I had for you this evening. If anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Corinne. Okay, I'll start with Fred. I was going to start with school board since you're supposed to know everything about this already.
Well, no, thank you. And first of all, thank you, Corinne. I am actually chairing that ad hoc committee. So myself, Councilmember Marks, and Councilwoman Armendariz. And I thank them for the work that they're doing. And I appreciate you bringing this up because, again, it's a cleanup grant, and I think the discussion I've had with a lot of community members is, well, can we put a playground there? Can we do this? Can we do that? And I'm trying to really say, no, it's specific on what we can do, and I'm glad you laid that out. But in addition to the ad hoc committee, we've named it Gourmet Alley Downtown Ad hoc Committee because we want to sort of look at what the vision of this council is for our downtown and seeing if there's things that we can incorporate into sort of our vision. If it's business district, if it's parking management, we talked about that as well. And one of the things, and I want to commend Corinne and also Hippo for bringing this up is, talking about creating a roadmap of literature, videos, whatever it can be for folks who want to open up a business in Gilroy. Because unfortunately, folks will jump into it without knowing the ins and outs of what it takes. And, our goal as a city is to make sure that our residents, whoever wants to invest in Gilroy, understand the process and go in knowing what they need to know prior to going in there. Because the last thing we want to do is see a business fail. So I want to thank Corinne and also the committee because we're looking at those things. There's how do we improve not only Gourmet Alley downtown, but bringing in more businesses and getting more investors in Gilroy. So I'm excited about that. The other thing, I don't know if we were going to talk about it or if it was shared, is the new parking lot that's going to be up and running, worked on pretty soon, I think in summer.
Mm-hmm.
So as you all know, it's 140
spaces.
40 spaces on 7th and Eagleberry, and it's going to be really, really nice. And I know with the Gourmet Alley going down to 7th Street, just the business owners are excited about it, So that's another project that's in the mix. And if you look at what we're investing in our downtown, it's over $6 million. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew about that because we have a lot of wonderful things coming in. Thanks to our city staff for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to start on this way. Council members, anyone else?
Fred?
Okay.
I think the city would be the last place to go to get advice on how to build a business.
Okay, Councilmember Leroy Munoz.
Corinne, thank you for the report. And you included some important, larger scale issues around inflation and some other kind of items there that still trickle down nonetheless to our community. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot in the private sector where supply chain issues have led to delays and increased cost in terms of projects. Is that something that we're feeling in the city, either with regard to ongoing projects or projects that are contemplated?
I don't think there's any city or municipality that isn't affected by this. There are some, there are some projects where, construction has been delayed or the arrival of restaurant equipment or different things like that have been postponed. And so those absolutely have an impact on our commercial businesses, on our small businesses, because they aren't able to upgrade or even open up if they're starting a new business. So it's a difficult time, but I can't imagine that there's anyone that's sheltered from that impact at the moment.
Have any of the city projects been impacted by those delays or increased costs?
So that might be a better question for Public Works because I'm not sure if I can answer that directly. Bryce, do you have any input on that? I can't answer that, but I can come back to with you.
I'm just curious because we know that the longer projects take, there's a greater backlog that's building up and materials become more and more expensive over time.
Costs rise, and then there's a worker shortage too. So even when you have shipments arriving or construction materials ready to go, contractors are delayed, things like that. Those are happening everywhere.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I would like to point out for everyone that the 135 million increase in taxable sales that you had on your screen is not the same as sales tax. Okay? Taxable sales and sales tax are very different things. So make sure people, because if we had 135 million of sales tax, then we wouldn't have to worry about so many.
That's a very
other
good point.
Yeah. Okay, going this way. Yep, Enrique.
Thanks for the presentation. On that tax issue, actually, so are taxes also collected from online sales?
In the
Like
city
what?
of
I mean,
Bryce is coming up. He's
I'm
coming up
not
to answer that because
sure how
Bryce
that
is going to
works.
answer that.
just with the idea that
Yeah.
there's a lot of online sales, obviously.
Yes, good evening. So as you, let's see if I can pull up this slide here. So on this slide, you'll see at the bottom at the bottom, you'll see the county pool at the bottom, the blue icon. So this is the cash pool. Online sales are pooled at the county level. And so different counties will have different rates that they probably call AB8 rates. And so we do collect that, but it's the value also changes each quarter because it's based on either the collections amounts, transactions in the different cities. And so we do collect the online sales tax, but the amount can vary sometimes significantly.
Yeah, we don't have control over it, and it's not necessarily based on someone who lives in Gilroy placing that online order because it goes to the county first, and then, yeah.
Great, okay. And then the land at Gilroy Gardens, is it, I was trying to orient myself with the map there, is it south of Gilroy Gardens proper?
It's up on the hill, so it's right behind
Okay.
where the amusement.
And is it, okay.
It's both. Well, I mean, the 536, I think, includes Gilroy Gardens itself, and that's 70 acres. And then there's 35 acres that's lower where, if you remember, Great Wolf Lodge, when that was proposed to possibly come here, that's 35 acres. And then the rest is all the hillside that, we have no idea what we'll maybe be able to do there. That's going to be a big hurdle.
That was the next question, actually. Was it slated for anything? But not
Huge
really.
hurdle.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, then going to the public.
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
All right, then closing public comment and moving on to 3.6, which is the renewal of school resource officers, SROs, Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. Both of us will be doing this, but I guess Dr. Flores is going to begin. Okay.
There are a lot of slides in this PowerPoint, and I'm not going to go through all of them.
Good.
These are what we presented to the school board last week. So just to go back in time to remind everybody on both sides, when the pandemic hit and we shut down in March 2020, the school resource officers continued to provide some limited services to the district that spring, but the next year we did not renew the contract, the MOU, because students weren't in school. We had very few discipline issues. They were at home and distance learning. So, but then we returned to in-person learning this school year in August, and we started discussions about renewing our MOU with the city for our SROs. And we're really glad we did because the transition back to in-person was rough. I've talked with some of you about it before. We've had in the fall a big increase in a lot of disciplinary type issues, more fights than we've seen in years. And we're not surprised because the students were essentially at home for 14 months, not interacting with each other, but a lot of things were building up apparently on social media during that time. So in the fall, each agency discussed renewing the MOU, and both agencies, board and council, approved the MOU. And we got a late start, so I'm just going to mention. So in December, the first SRO was hired, and in almost February, the second, January, I'll say, the second SRO was hired. So literally, we've had the program up and running for 3 months. So we have to be really cautious about that. Then we also hired hired additional mental health staff and a social worker to help, in conjunction with the officers, provide a different model than what we were doing before. And we're really excited about what we're seeing already. We were asked by our board to, every time we bring this MOU to the board for renewal, that we conduct a survey. So remember, again, there were only services for 3 months, but we had a really good participation rate, primarily because we asked the students to do it in class. So we had a very good participation rate, but 870 parents responded, which is very good. Teachers responded, but we gave them about a week to respond. So the response time was very small or short. But just real quickly, I'm going to summarize what these next slides tell. I think it tells the story that our schools are doing a good job of laying out expectations for behavior. As you can see, there's most people who agree or strongly agree. The consequences for violating school rules are clear to most of our students and parents and staff. There's good communication. Students feel comfortable telling the staff about potential violence or illegal activity. And on that note, I'll also mention that we have a Stop It app where students can anonymously report this, and it's used occasionally. Most students feel safe in their classroom and on their campus. And unfortunately, many students said they'd witnessed a fight this year. And again, we had quite a few fights in the fall. And I know our SROs have been involved in a few. This is just a breakdown of disciplinary data, probably not as interesting to you as it is to us, but it's something that we're closely tracking. Again, we've just been through a pandemic, which had a major impact on our students' behavior. And this is one I want to really call out because we've had people say that the SROs just lead to a lot of arrests on campus. That is not true. It's never been true in our district. Most juvenile arrests occur out in the community. Very few arrests occur in our schools, as you can see by the chart up above. And that's not why we have SROs, is to arrest students. They're there to help us jointly create a program where we're teaching our kids what's appropriate behavior on campus, including, that you can't bring drugs, alcohol, and weapons to school. And our officers, as you can see, one of them's there working with a group of students. Well, our model includes a lot of prevention, intervention, developing relationships with the officers and the students and staff, and we think that model is working really well already. We're getting really good results. Both our staff and the officers are tracking what they're doing. So we're keeping very close track of how they spend their time. Both our officers have already gone through restorative justice training, and they'll be going through other trainings. So we also have a lot of social emotional supports in place. We have more opportunities for students to see a therapist or a counselor than they've ever had in our district. And that's thanks to a great partnership with our community-based agencies. And we've hired quite a few additional staff who are mental health therapists or counselors. We've done a lot of professional development around this whole issue, restorative justice training that just occurred, and I know a board member or two participated, and there's more coming this summer. We're training a lot of people. And then here's just an overview. This is actually written into the MOU now. The 6 areas that the purpose of our school resource officers are outlined in the MOU. That was never there before. And we're really, really proud of this. And one of the top goals is to prevention, and another is to diversion, is to prevent juvenile arrest and keep our kids out of the criminal justice system. We're really pleased so far with the results. And these are questions that were on the survey specific to the school resource officers. And as you can see, the results from October 2021 to April 2022. And there was improvement in many of the answers, more people responded strongly agree or agree. And you can look at these at your leisure later, but I wanted to let you know that our board approved the MOU last week, and I know it'll be in front of the city council in the near future. And the process from now on, these are just testimonials that you can read on your own, but the process from now on is we'll be on a cycle. In late March, early April, every year, the MOU will be in front of each of our, certainly in front of us first, because we're required to notify you by April 30th if we wish to renew the contract. So this will be an annual occurrence. We'll be reporting the data every year from now on. And we have mechanisms in place, both the SROs and our staff, for keeping track of what they're doing. I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, looking both ways. Enrique?
I know some of the SROs were at proms this weekend, so
Yes.
it was the first time proms have returned to campus, to USD
Right.
in 3 years, so it
Right.
was a big deal. But SROs also make their presence there.
One of the SROs was at Run for Fitness on Saturday. So we had a huge event at Gilroy High where students by grade level ran. And not only did he run some of the events with the students, he got his bike out of his trunk and rode the rest. So, and the kids loved it. They just loved having him there as part of that event.
It may have been the same SRO that then went to the prom that evening, so they're busy
I hope
people.
not. I'm anticipating he was pretty sore.
Okay. Councilmember Tovar?
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Flores, thank you for sharing this. Is there a way that we can get a copy of this?
I brought copies for you. I'll be
Perfect.
happy to distribute
Is this
them.
on the school district website? I mean, I think this is wonderful information to share with
It's
the community.
on our board agenda,
Okay.
our last board agenda.
Can we go back one slide? I think
Sure.
it was a question. This one here. Having a resource officer in my school made me feel safe. You looked at the very last.
Yes. Thank you for asking that,
Yeah.
Fred. I should have called that out. Again, we've only had it in place for 3 months, so a
Right.
lot of kids and parents and staff, this is staff,
Okay,
are
yeah.
saying, I haven't had contact with the SRO. No surprise,
Right.
because it's only been in place 3 months.
And I'm glad you're clarifying that because
Yeah.
I read that as I don't want to have any contact, but that's saying that they
No,
just haven't had
it
an
was just,
opportunity.
we put that category there because we assumed people who had no interaction
Right.
with an SRO would want to tell us. So that's why that's there.
And then how can we get our chief out there with the cowboy hat? Thank you.
I think he's got the boots.
I know. Thank you, Dr. Flores.
Okay. Anyone else up here with questions?
Right. And the chief will have probably a better description of this than me, but we've been charting this for a while, by the way. So I was personally involved in the data before we shut down in conjunction with the GPD, and this is very typical of what we've seen.
So it's titled Citations on Juvenile Campuses, but is this actually data about all juvenile arrests?
Yes, yes. So as you can see, 80% were not at school. Thank you for asking that, so I can make that very clear to everybody. And by the way, those 6 arrests were very serious matters. You know, they typically involve drugs, large amount of drugs, or a weapon. So some things have, unfortunately, because of what the student has done, does require a citation or arrest, but it's pretty rare. And I have charts going back several years before, if I could find them. But this is very typical of what we saw every year before we shut down. And I don't know if the chief wants to add to that, because they're the ones that collect the data.
Oh, that's accurate, Doctor. And this item will be coming to council, the May 16 meeting for your consideration and our recommendation to continue with the partnership.
All right. Board Member Diaz. How do you guys refer to yourselves? Board Member Diaz? I'm calling everybody by their first name. Trustee. There we go.
Oh, yeah. At our last board meeting where we approved it, I did mention that that from our point of view and the district's point of view and the community's point of view, they see it as the Gilroy Unified's expense. But I do commend the city for meeting us halfway, meeting the district halfway. That's a true collaboration between both sides, and it shows here. So I wanted to formally say that if you don't see our board meetings. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Do we have any comments from members of the public?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one speaker card from Ron Kirkish.
Okay, we'll come back.
Thank you, Mayor. It wasn't too long ago that this was a very disruptive issue, SROs. We had a issue with the, it wasn't a unified vote on the trustees, and it definitely wasn't a unified vote on the city council. It's very disappointing. I think we know innately that SROs are good for our community, and they're there to do certain things like protect our kids. How somebody could not see that is very disturbing. Somebody that's been elected for the purpose of protecting our kids, our community. I hope this never happens again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments? Public comments?
No other public comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay, closing public comment and coming back to the dais. Go ahead.
So just making a statement. I know that when we were discussing it, that when we approved the MOU previously, one of the comments from the chief at the time was that a lot of the SROs receive special training to deal with youth. So because it looks like 80% of the rest are made in the community, would it be possible to train all of GPD on the same training, trauma-informed care, all of that? Because they're dealing with the youth, they're making the arrests. So it's not just the school, but it's also the community.
Do you wish to respond to that, or is it, she said it's a statement, but if you have an answer, then
Sure.
please feel free.
So we refer to restorative justice training?
Well, not just that, but just
Okay.
trauma-informed care.
Right.
And just dealing with youth in general.
Right.
They're a different breed.
Right. Yeah, you know, that certainly is desirable, optimal, but the reality is that sometimes it is costly, and sometimes we want to tailor or advance officer training to what particular specialty they're assigned to. So if they're dealing with kids on a daily basis, it certainly want to make sure that they're afforded all the relevant and up-to-date training and best practice. And, you know, just to expand a little bit is, at the state level, there's training required by the Commission of Peace Officer Standards and Training. And it could be anything from tactical communication, de-escalation, that type of stuff. But restorative justice training is more at the local level. And we do have a couple of folks that have sat through the circles, but have not yet been through the actual training.
But it's not feasible to have all your officers trained in some form or another of that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, anything's possible. You know,
Okay.
certainly we could offer that to our officers as well.
Okay, Trustee Pacino has a question, and then I'll go to Trustee Nelson.
I just want to make the same comments that I made at our board meeting when this came up, when this was on our agenda. And being the senior member on the board, and also one that was a Gilroy Unified employee at the secondary level in 1975, we had SROs, but it was, when this first came for renewal again last year, it was kind of striking, it was very striking to me that we had just an MOU basically in terms of employment, but nothing in there about what our expectations were. Nor did we ever ask anybody, how we were doing, whether it was the city or the SROs themselves or staff or kids or parents. So I am very proud to be part of a program where we have instituted that, where we have outlined what our expectations are, and we can change that as that goes on if need be. We are also asking, and this is very rudimentary, and we've already decided that some of the questions that we have asked, like makes me feel safe, one person is not in charge of making you feel safe, so we will be changing those questionnaires. But we will look at asking staff, parents, and kids how things are going. And, hello, SROs, what are you doing? Please write down. And the city has been great. Chief has been very supportive about, hey, what are they doing? And they have data with that as well. So this is a completely different program than what Gilroy Unified has seen in the past and what the city of Gilroy has seen in the past. It is much more proactive and much more positive. So I look forward to this kind of data coming to both of our bodies on a yearly basis, because I think that is very, very important.
Thank you. Trustee Nelson.
I had a follow-up question for Trustee Fiak. Isn't de-escalation taught as part of police officer training?
It is now.
Is it normal?
It starts in the academy, and then there's advanced training that is currently combined with crisis intervention training.
Okay, so they do have...
They've all been through that.
Okay, so it's not necessarily the restorative practice, but
right.
They're ready to go.
Yeah, the benefit of well, there's pros and cons for smaller to middle-sized agencies that we wear a lot of hats. So there could be an officer that one day he's a hostage negotiator, which means that they've received that additional training, and be a school resource officer as a full-time assignment. So same thing with the tactical team, major accident investigation team. So a few officers wear several hats. And so they'd have that extra level of training as well that they employ in their everyday dealings.
Thank you for that question. Okay, another one? Okay.
For Board President Casino, is there a plan to have these surveys of students and parents in the community regularly?
On an annual basis, as the
Annual?
MOU, yes. As Dr. Flores mentioned, we'll be doing this come about March, April every year.
Thank you.
If not, more often.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. All right, 3.7 is city news, and then 3.8 is GUSD news. I want everyone to realize that this is for any one of us here on the dais. If there's anything you want to say that you haven't already said, I'm going to ask you please limit it to 1 or 2 minutes, though, because if everybody's got something to say, it will be long. So I will start on Fred's end, and we'll just go.
No, Mayor, my sort of notes were mentioned earlier, so I have nothing to say.
Okay. Councilmember, nothing? Nothing? Well, this is easy. Nothing. So since that's 3.7, it's just city, I'll open public comment first. Does anybody have anyone from the public want to speak on 3.7?
No speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so closing public comment there and going to 3.8, which goes here.
Yep.
Okay. Well, see, you put time limits on, and then it's great. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
It's because Mr. Good's not here. If he was here,
Yeah.
we'd be here all night, so just saying.
All right, 3.9 is future agenda items. So
Madam
that's-
Mayor, just for formality, should we ask for public comment on 3.8?
Yes, we should ask for public comment on 3.8, sorry.
I received no speaker cards for
Okay,
that.
closing public comment on 3.8. And moving on to 3.9, this is an annual meeting that we have, so a future agenda item means for 2023. But if anybody has a particular subject that, for example, they thought, would be a good thing to put on this kind of agenda, this would be the time to raise it.
Mayor, I have one thing, and I know we talked about the decrease in enrollment and also sort of the closure of one of the schools, but I think we had this conversation at our last council meeting. If things were to change or shift and sort of enrollment went up, what's the plan for if it's a reopening the school? But then also I had some public comments regarding the possible school near Eagle Ridge, is the traffic sort of congestion that may occur if a school's built out there, and what's sort of the plan for that. So I'm not sure if that's something that I know we can't forecast what's going to happen, but I just was wondering if you guys had that conversation about possible future sort of sites. So, does that make, yeah, just an update of what the game plan is if there was to be growth in enrollment.
Okay, this is future agenda items. Are you asking for something to be on the 2023 agenda? Or are you asking a question that before we close?
No, I was asking a question, sorry.
Oh, a question
yeah, my
before we
apologies.
close.
Yeah, I was asking a question.
Okay.
Sorry about that. No.
Well, let me talk first about school closures. You saw the enrollment decline earlier in the chart, and what we decided recently was to put a hold on a school closure because we're leveled out for 2 years. But we will be each year reporting to the board our projections from our demographer, and at some point, the school closure discussion will be back on our agenda. As you saw, we're going to decline a lot over the next 10 years. So that's the school closure side of it. We have no plans to reopen ADB, the school that we closed. The Santa Clara County Office of Ed has a lease for the building, and in fact is doing some things that are really beneficial to our district. So it's now the South County hub for professional development. They're housing our expelled students there, and a few other programs are housed there, and they plan to expand. During the pandemic, they allowed space to be used for testing. Many people know that it was a COVID testing site, so it's been really beneficial to us, plus it generates revenue for our general fund. I hope that answers your question.
Regarding a school at Eagle Ridge, we have property there. We have no money to build it. We have no kids to put in it. So at this point, no.
That's a longer term plan.
Perfect.
Yeah. But, it's the district needs to have property. I've been around a long time, as you know. I've seen statewide in local districts decline by 2,000 or 3,000 students, and seriously, 10 years later, they're growing by that amount. When our younger generation decides to start getting married, having kids, we're going to see more kids, but that's probably a long ways away.
Yeah. Well, luckily, Dr. Flores will be with us for another 10 years. At
Right,
least.
yeah. All right. On that note.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, then is there any public comment on this?
I received no speaker cards, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and closing public comment. And that means we are adjourned at 7:38 p.m. Thank you, everybody.